Let me ask you a question. Do you have a hard time saying no to people? Do you have a hard time not volunteering to do something that you've been asked to do? Perhaps oftentimes overextending yourself energetically, emotionally? Well, then this podcast is for you this week. We are going to be talking all about boundaries. What kind of boundaries are there? How are they showing up in our lives? How are you setting them up? Anyways, we're going to get into all of that today on The Brain Lady Speaks. So stick with me. All right, let's go into the topic. The topic is boundaries, and I am Julie Anderson, aka Brain Lady Julie, and I am very happy to have you here with us on The Brain Lady Speaks for this episode. We are going to be talking about something that, well, a lot of times isn't talked about, I don't think, especially when it comes to things like mental health or just overall emotional health and happiness. We as individuals, and I'm going to put women on the spot here for you gentlemen, you who are listening, you may have similar issues, but it seems to be something that plagues the female gender just a little bit more than the male gender, or the XX chromosome versus the XY chromosome, as I like to describe it, because women have a tendency to just battle a little bit more with developing boundaries in their lives. First off, let me emphasize that if you are under the care of a physician or a therapist, any of the information that I'm sharing here on the Brain Lady Speaks podcast is additional information, right? It's just add value to something that you are already doing. So if you have any questions about it, be sure to reach out to and discuss this with the health practitioner whose care you are under. Or if you have more questions about it, then by all means, shoot us an email at info@brainladyspeaker.com, and we'll try to address those or point you in the right direction for assistance. So with that little disclaimer gone and done away with, let's talk about boundaries. When I'm talking about boundaries for the purpose of this particular pod, we are discussing the kind of these invisible lines that define your personal space. And that can literally be physically, your personal space physically, or your time, your emotional space, your energy. Boundaries are not pushing people away. It's not driving wedges. It's not designed, having healthy boundaries is not designed to drive a wedge between individuals in your life, whether that's personal or professional. It's really about creating a sense of safety, a sense of confidence. It actually helps to build healthy relationships or healthy respect within the relationships that you have, because it's a lot that we don't think about. It's a lot of things that we don't oftentimes pay attention to. So it deserves a little bit of time this week, right? So what are the boundaries that we're going to kind of touch on? Well, or what are the boundaries that we have? Well, we have our mental boundaries, right? Valuing your own thoughts, your values, your opinions, your perspectives. Oftentimes we will have people insert their ideas on us, and we may give way to them even though they might be in direct conflict with what our perspectives and opinions are. And remember, when I talk about the diverse personalities and I instruct leaders on understanding the brain personality connection, I'm not talking about things that are right or wrong, or ideas or thoughts that are right or wrong, or correct or incorrect. It's just the differences, right? And oftentimes individuals may tend to think, well, either they're wrong or I'm wrong, especially if you're battling with a little bit of low self-esteem. And it could be because you don't have a healthy mental boundary in place. And then there's, of course, your emotional boundaries, right? Protecting your emotional tone and your emotional energy. And this can be invaded on by other people's opinions and other people's thoughts. It can even be bridged, if you will, or pushed through by other people's own negative energy or their own negative thoughts, even if it's towards themselves. There have been times in my life when I've had to distance myself from other individuals, not cut them out completely, but definitely be guarded of how much time I spent with them, because they were just that truly negative person. And I would sometimes feel that negative energy taking over me. And I would start looking at the clouds in the sky instead of the beautiful silver linings or the sun that was peering through, so to speak, because emotionally it can be draining to be around individuals that are like that. Then, of course, there's your possessions and your money. You need to have boundaries there. You need to have internal boundaries. The amount of time and energy that you spend on yourself versus other people, right? Self-care, we've heard this saying, it's become fairly popular in the last decade or more, that self-care is not selfish, especially when it comes to being able to give your best or give your all to the individuals that are in your relationships that you interact with, or give your best at work. You have to have those internal boundaries that conserve your energy or refill your energy bank, right? It can even be conversational. You know, there are a lot of topics right now that are a little bit edgy and a little bit controversial, and there are individuals who like having conversations about that. Right? When I talk about the brain personality connection, I talk about the boss brain quadrant and how that's the home of competition is there. So there's just a certain amount of people out there that it's actually their natural brain tendency, their natural brain gifts of sorts to be competitive or to be a little bit of argumentative in conversations. And if that's not you and that doesn't feed you, then there could very well be topics or things that other people are discussing that make you feel uncomfortable. And you have to have boundaries there too. You have to protect that emotional space when it comes to your conversations. Then, of course, there is the physical. There is the physical, your person, your body, right? Your own privacy. Everybody needs to have these boundaries in place. I sometimes think, especially when it comes to business relationships, even some personal relationships, family relationships, everybody does not need to be up in everybody's business all the time, right? You need to have those physical boundaries in place as well. And you need to, especially as a female, for those women, not that it's not something men have to deal with in this day and age as well, but especially as a female, right? You have to have those physical personal boundaries. There are individuals that I talk about, again, referring back to the brain personality connection, I talk about the difference between introverts and extroverts and how there are those that extroverts tend to have a much smaller personal space. In other words, they can literally, like, physically come right up and be really close to you when they're talking, and they just have all this excess energy. And for introverts especially, they have a need for a very large personal space, physically a large personal space, to be able to, just not get stressed out. So if you have these individuals in your life, whether they're personal or professional or family or whatever, sometimes it takes actually having that conversation, like, just stand back a few feet. We can have this conversation, but just a few feet away. So there's the physical boundaries. And then one of the top ones right now, and I really think, not to bring up that history or that word again, but since 2020, since the things that happened during that pandemic, I think it really raised a lot of individuals, especially in my conversations, raised a lot of individuals' thought process on the value of their time, where they're spending their time, right? Is it worth spending 60, 70, 80 hours a week at work when you really only need to be there for 40? Because you don't have a healthy boundary in place when it comes to your time. Time is one thing you cannot purchase, right? You can buy things that will, if you implement them in your life, will make you healthier, right? Vitamins, things like that. You can buy a gym membership and get in shape. You can spend money on certain things. Time is something you can't spend money on. You cannot spend money to buy time. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, the same 365 and a quarter days in a year. So you need to have healthy boundaries in those spaces to be able to value your time and make sure that you're communicating to other people that you have boundaries and help them to be appreciative of those and honor those. Boundaries are really important for several reasons, right? One is your stress and your anxiety level. When you don't have healthy boundaries in place, your stress and anxiety will continue to build and grow and compound, right? When boundaries are not clear or boundaries are wishy-washy, right? You feel less, or you will likely feel more overwhelmed. You will, by other people's demands or other people's even just requests, they may not even be demands. You may consider it something you have to do because you're not honoring your own boundaries. So stress and anxiety can be very high and overwhelm. When healthy boundaries are in place, then you are allowing yourself to feel calmer and more centered in your life and more true to yourself. And that's another reason why boundaries are important is your self-esteem, right? How do you feel about yourself? When you set healthy boundaries for yourself, you are showing other people as well as yourself that you value that time, that energy, your well-being. And this can lead to really stronger self-confidence, stronger feeling of self-worth, and stronger, healthier relationships, because that's another benefit of having healthy boundaries. Healthy boundaries create a foundation of mutual respect and value for your time, energy, and well-being, as well as their time, energy, and well-being, right? Because if you are asking, hey, this is my boundary, you're going to tend to value theirs and honor the other person's more as well. And that will help that relationship. That will help to build that relationship. It also will increase your productivity and your focus. Right now, people's focus is all over the place. Like they don't even have a focus dial on the lens of life. Most people are so scattered, and that's because of overwhelm and stress and good old-fashioned technology, right? So when you have boundaries, and the boundary might be on technology, when you do this, it gives you the ability to become more focused because you are saying no to things that you don't need to be doing. You are saying, I'll do that at a different time. You're keeping those boundaries in place. It gives you the ability to focus on the things that are really important in your life, right? So those are some of the reasons why boundaries are really, really important. And there is a science to boundaries, right? It's just, I'm going to go back to the brain at some point in time in every single podcast. Our brains are wired to crave connection and social approval. We know this. I tell people all the time, we are herd animals. That's just life. That's the way it is. We are herd animals. However, when boundaries are weak and non-existent, there's that need for connection can actually backfire and lead to stress and anxiety and burnout. So it works on kind of this neuropsychological level when boundaries are not in place, or when they are in place. When you have healthy boundaries, when you have clear boundaries, the brain can better differentiate between your needs and the needs of other people, right? Have you ever stopped and asked yourself, well, did I do that because it was something I wanted to do? Or maybe you've gone and done something and you feel very unfulfilled and you feel very just like blah afterwards. And you're like, well, why did I even do that in the first place? It could be because your boundaries weren't in place and you were leaning towards what the other people wanted. So when you have healthy boundaries, you're able to better differentiate between the needs of yourself and the needs of other people. And that allows you to be more balanced emotionally and give a more balanced emotional response when someone else is asking you to do something for you. And it'll help you to avoid situations that can trigger your stress response or your feelings of overwhelm, frustration, or even anger. So it's important to understand the neuropsych piece of it. Unhealthy boundaries, when you don't have clear boundaries, the brain is constantly bombarded by these external demands. And this can lead to that chronic stress situation. And we've talked about the whole stress response in the brain with the amygdala shutting down the immune system, or the immune system and the digestive system to slow crawl, and how that affects your ability to even just be healthy and get through a day and function well. So unhealthy boundaries will do this to you. The psychological connection, there's a huge psychological connection to having healthy boundaries, because by setting healthy boundaries, you're prioritizing your well-being. You're going to create a space where there is that self-care, right? You're taking care of yourself, you're exercising, you're eating right, you're spending that mindful meditation time to control and manage the stress. And that gives you this, that actually, when you are in that position, you're able to give more to other people because you aren't in a stressed out position. So you can help them in their situations better and with more efficiency and more empathy, right? However, when you have those unhealthy boundaries, you become a people pleaser and you are putting their needs before your own emotional needs and their needs physically or whatever. And that can really lead to depleting your emotional reserves. So it leaves little room. You can almost start to resent that person or resent that job or resent that thing that is becoming a demand on your time, right? And then that just makes things even worse, right? So you want to understand that boundaries, hopefully you've gotten the point at this point, or you've gotten the picture at this point, how important boundaries are. So how do you know if you don't have healthy boundaries in place? Well, there's a lot of signs that you can recognize, because you may think, no, I'm pretty good about saying no. I can say no, and I think I have healthy boundaries in place. Well, let me ask you, do you often feel constantly drained and depleted? Like you feel like you're just constantly giving to others and never have that time for yourself, or you're just constantly doing things outside of yourself, right? That could be a sign that you don't have a healthy boundary for that emotional and physical space that you need. Are you holding a lot of resentment or anger? Especially towards other people, maybe towards your job, maybe towards the world, towards the person at the bank, right? This could be a sign that you've got some boundaries that are out of place or too low. And then, of course, there is the difficulty saying no. If you have a difficulty saying no, like no is a complete sentence, people. It is okay to say no. If you have difficulty saying no, that is a dead giveaway that there are some boundaries that you need to work on building and developing. What about feeling responsible for other people's emotions? This is a big one, right? Do you ever feel like it's your job to fix somebody else or to make somebody else happy? This can be a sign of codependency and actually very unhealthy emotional boundaries. Look, at the end of the day, you are the only person that can truly be responsible for your own happiness. Now, I'm not saying that you can't buy a gift for someone and make them smile or make them happy. Of course, that's a beautiful thing to do. I'm not saying that, helping a person out when they need assistance isn't a good thing to do. That's all good and fine. But happiness, true happiness, comes more internal, right? And nobody can do that but you. So if you feel responsible for somebody else's emotions, you have to learn to put up a boundary, because only they can. If they're unhappy, that's coming from inside. They have to work on that. What about guilt and shame? That's another sign that you might have some unhealthy boundaries in place, or unhealthy boundaries, or boundaries not in a healthy place, right? If you feel guilty, especially when setting new boundaries or prioritizing your own needs, that can be a sign that you're internalizing other people's expectations and neglecting your own well-being. Fear of conflict. Now, there are brain quadrant dominances that are very non-competitive and that don't want conflict. And there's a lot of us that don't want conflict. I avoid conflict at all costs, primarily because of the negative energy that it brings me for myself. So that's a boundary that I put in myself. Like, I'm not going to have an argument with a person because I'm not going to waste my emotional energy on something unless it's truly important, truly something that I need to stand my ground on. So if you avoid speaking up or expressing your needs in fear of conflict, then that can be a sign that you might need to put some boundaries in place. And then, of course, being able to comfortably say emotionally, I need to distance from this position or this situation right now. If you have difficulty about doing that, or you want to fix somebody else's drama, then that's probably a sign that you don't have very healthy boundaries. And it can even show up. You can see signs physically, right? Changes in your sleep pattern, not being able to sleep well, especially if you're not sleeping well because you are worrying about somebody else's well-being. Now, again, I'm not talking about a mom worrying about her children's health. I'm not talking about a spouse worrying about something in the relationship. I'm talking about staying up or just being oftentimes having difficulty sleeping because your brain is racing over things that it doesn't need to be racing over. It can cause headaches, stomach aches, definitely psychosomatic. There's a psychosomatic link to stress and boundary issues when it comes to the physical, like upset stomachs, digestive issues, right? Because remember, that all goes when the amygdala slows that immune system and that digestive system down to a crawl, you're going to feel physical things. So if you're being stressed out because you don't have those boundaries in place, right? You're getting the picture. Also, there's behavioral signs, right? So how are you with other people's boundaries? Do you honor other people's boundaries? Right? Do you overshare personal information? Are you constantly in that people pleasing mode, going out of your way to please other people? This can happen, especially for the nurturers in life. When I talk about brain quadrant dominance and the brain personality connection, those who are that nurturer, brain quadrant dominance, that you will tend to do that more often as well. So these are some of the things that are giveaways, that are signs that you have unhealthy boundaries. Now, why is it so difficult to set boundaries? Well, boundaries mean that you're putting yourself first. And if you're a mom, that's not really acceptable. If you were raised with low self-esteem, or you were raised being expected to reach the expectations of other people put on you, that's going to be difficult for you to do. So that makes it hard, especially if it's someone you love, especially if it's a person you're very connected to. It's hard to set those boundaries. Boundaries require that you know yourself, that you really take time to know what your needs are. And sometimes sometimes that internal work we don't want to do. So setting the boundaries it can be difficult because you have to do that internal work, right? You may be afraid that it'll jeopardize a relationship, and truth be told, it might. It might push people away that don't understand you. People don't like change. In general, people do not like change. Change can be psychologically very scary, right? So someone that you're beginning to set a boundary with, that especially if they're a personal relationship, they may take it personal and go, well, what's wrong with me? Why are they pulling away? So it can at times cause some friction in a relationship, and you may not want that. So that's difficulty. And setting boundaries and being consistent with those boundaries, keeping those boundaries in place, can be very difficult. So these are some of the things that just kind of a big overview. So what do you do? I want to be sure that I get to the proactive part of this. And by the way, we do stay on till the end, because we do have a really good workbook that has a lot of this information in it. It's several pages long. I think it's I don't know, 20, 30, 40 pages. I don't know, but we can get you that. I normally only use that with my private clients, but if you mention that you saw it on the podcast, we'll get this to you, or heard it on the podcast. But it's a worksheet that can help you to really identify where your current boundaries are. So you need to, first off, that's the first step, is find out, think to yourself, what's causing me stress? What makes me feel unsafe or uncomfortable or devalued? What drains me? What do I stress over? Right? These are things that you can ask yourself, and just kind of in that mindful meditation time of your day that I hope you're doing, right? That give some thought to this and kind of start to identify, where are your current boundaries? Who makes you feel safe? And what makes you feel uncomfortable, or who makes you feel unsafe or devalued in your life? What drains you? Who drains you, right? Do I stress over interacting with people throughout the day? What gives me energy? What drains me of energy? These are asking yourself these questions, these types of questions will help you to then stand back and identify where your current boundaries are and where they aren't. More importantly, where they aren't. Right? So kind of think about that. And then once you realize, okay, these are the areas that I need to put some boundaries in place. I really need to get focused on getting my boundaries in place. How do you do those? Well, it's not as difficult as the steps are easy, might be hard to do, but it's really kind of simple guidelines for work. Recognize, really become clear about what are your job requirements? What are your job description expectations? Especially if you've been at a job for many, many years, they may have gotten foggy, right? They may have been perfectly clear in the beginning, but as businesses evolve and grow and your position adjusts, or someone gets fired or someone new gets hired, those actual descriptions or actual responsibilities may really start to get unclear or get foggy. And you find that when you really analyze and ask, what are my actual expectations? You may find you are way overstepping those boundaries. You are way overstepping what you are responsible for doing. So one thing that most people do is they do not shut everything off after hours. If you have a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 6 or whatever it is, set an after hours boundary to that. If you clock out at 6, you clock out at 6. If that email notification pops up on your phone or it pops up on your computer, ignore it. You can, even if you think, well, maybe that's rude, okay, then put an after hours autoresponder on it and click on the second that 6 o'clock hits. You don't need to work to 6:15. You don't need to work till 7:30. You don't need to respond at 9 o'clock at night. You do not need to respond on the weekends. Oh my goodness, little peer into Julie's personal life. My husband drives me crazy with this. He will take business calls on the weekends, and he builds swimming pools. He's not an ER doctor. He's not a neurosurgeon. I'm just saying, right? It's perfectly okay to put these kind of autoresponders on things that, just simply say, I'm out of office. It's after hours. It's the weekend, whatever it is. Boundary, put it in place. If you have difficult colleagues, right, limit unnecessary interactions, right? Always stay on the positive, always smile, be very direct with your communication, and document any issues. Keep track of issues. There's more details in this in the worksheet if you want it, but make sure that you document things, right? Take your breaks. Learn to say no when somebody hands you a project that is not in your job expectations, right? Remember that you have the right for a healthy work-life balance, and that is in the benefit of the organization you work for. If you don't have a healthy work-life balance, we talked about the physical, like When I go over statistics of how much money, how many billions of dollars are lost in the United States due to lack of productivity and workplace absenteeism due to stress, right? Set the boundaries, right? Set the boundaries. Family boundaries. These are very important too. All of us, including myself, will have a tendency to give unsolicited advice to family members. It just happens. So if you are the one that does that, I oftentimes will either apologize for it, or I try to really listen to the person and what they're saying, and always take a deep breath and, okay, do I really need to interject information here, or do I just need to listen? So unsolicited advice, a polite, firm response is what's key in this situation, right? Thank them for their concern, but clearly state that you're in control of the situation. You got it handled. You might come to them in the future if you need it. Parenting decisions, respect the parenting decisions of people around you, and simply ask, families can have strong opinions about raising their kids. I know I have to bite my tongue many times. I have a lot of strong opinions with schooling and all kinds of things, right? So you gotta just set the boundaries. Express your appreciation kindly. Don't get heated about it for their input, but emphasize that you'll be making the parenting decisions based on whatever your philosophies or your approach is, right? If you have critical or narcissistic or manipulative family members, really learn to pay attention and to recognize their tells. Everybody has a tell. Narcissists have a tell. Every manipulator has a tell. In other words, it could be the things that the guilt trips they try to throw on you. It could be the, well, if you only, or, well, you don't understand. There's all these tells. Identify them. Identify their manipulation tactics so that you can respond, right? And if they're trying to do emotional blackmail or playing the victim all the time, recognize that. And then set limits on the communication, how you communicate and how often you communicate. And sometimes that might mean not communicating for a longer period of time. And don't get into emotional arguments, right? Respond calmly and avoid taking on that negative energy. There are some people out there that love the drama, and you want to be clear, right? Be clear about your expectations. Communicate where your boundaries are. Plan activities, right? If you have visits coming and you're like, okay, you can tell them, I will be there from the event may be from 2 to 6, and you can say, okay, I'll be there from 3 to 5. It's okay. It's okay to say no to unwanted activities. It's okay to say no to doing things that make you feel uncomfortable. Remember, no is a full and complete sentence. Or if you want to be, mild about it, you can say no, thank you, right? It's perfectly acceptable. It's perfectly acceptable. You can even offer alternatives if it's somebody that's important. It's a friendship, and they're constantly inviting you to do something. You might suggest alternative ways. Maybe you're the introvert, they're the extrovert, and they're constantly saying, let's go out to the dancing tonight. And you keep saying no, and they're starting to think you don't like them. So give them an alternative, right? What is a way that we can spend time together that works for my brain as well? Your opinion is important. There's a lot of suggestions, and I don't want to keep going and run this into the ground, but I do want to say that you can practice setting boundaries and stating what you want without being aggressive, without causing in itself conflict. Using phrases like, I'd like to, I'd prefer to, I'd rather. Or maybe you just say, well, I want to. I don't want to see that movie. I would like to see this movie, right? Or you can say, blank works for me, or I'm more comfortable with. You can even very firmly say, I've decided that I'm not going to go to that. Or I've decided that I'm not going to see that movie. Or I've decided that I don't want to buy that car. I want to buy something different, right? That's okay. There's a lot of sentence leads that we can provide you with in that worksheet that are really good. Practice saying no. Sometimes and I would say practice all of these statements, right? Practice saying no, write it out. Write it out. I'm not comfortable with this. No, I'm not going to do this. I'm not comfortable with this. I'd rather not do this. And remember, you don't have to put a reason behind that. I'd rather not do this. Please don't do this. Or simply, I can't do that for you. You don't have to do, I can't do that for you because, or that doesn't work for me because. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to explain yourself. It's perfectly acceptable to do that. Dealing with pushback, you're going to have pushback. It's going to happen. It just does. People, like I said, they are uncomfortable with change. And if you have been doing things for other individuals, over extending yourself for a better part of your life, you're going to get pushback. There can be a lot of passive aggressive behavior that will raise in another person. And it might be passive aggressive behavior that you've never seen them display before, but now it's like off the charts. So understand the pushback. They're going to expect to have resistance. It's normal for people to resist change, especially when it involves you and patterns of behavior that you used to always do and now you're changing. Recognize emotional triggers. Pushback can be emotionally charged. Identify your own triggers and practice staying calm and remaining assertive, sticking to your guns about the boundary that you're setting, right? It's helpful to be clear and calm when you communicate your boundaries. You can restate them being clearly and calmly. When you start to get emotional, what happens? You lose your prefrontal cortex. You lose your executive center in the brain. And then it becomes even more difficult to communicate that to somebody else. You get to a loss of words, like I'm having now, because I need to take deeper breaths because I kind of get fired up on this. But avoid saying you. Avoid saying you make me uncomfortable and therefore this is the new way of doing things. Use the I statement more. Like, I feel overwhelmed, or I need some time for myself. If they say something like, if you really cared about me, you would help me with this, or you would not do this to me. That's a guilt trip, right? That's something that they might say. So you could respond with something like, I understand that you need help. However, I'm not able to take this task on right now. Perhaps you can ask somebody else, or maybe I can help you find alternate resources. Right? They might tell you that you're being selfish, and you can say, I understand you're disappointed, but I have to prioritize my situation first. So just remember that it is when you recognize the tactics, when you clearly and firmly state your positions, that's going to help to establish new boundaries. And it's going to be uncomfortable. Breathe into it. It's going to be uncomfortable. And you might feel yourself feeling guilty. You might feel yourself, giving your own pushback on it. Be consistent. Be firm, even with yourself. And you will begin to feel so much better. You will feel healthier. You will be healthier. You will experience less overwhelm. So I am going to wrap it up there. You want that worksheet, please reach out. Send us an email at info@brainladyspeaker.com. If you feel this was, do me a favor, give me a little social media love. If you feel that this was a beneficial podcast, you liked the information, please share it out on all your social networks. And give me a quick 1 or 2 sentence review, 5-star review. If you didn't like it, give me the feedback through an email, but we'd really like to get the Brain Lady Speaks podcast out there to more people because we feel that the information that we bring is definitely of value. So give me that love. If you do have feedback, please feel free to send it to info@brainladyspeaker.com. If you have a topic that you'd like to see me discuss on this, or better yet, if you would like to be interviewed, or you have someone that would like to be interviewed on the Brain Lady Speaks podcast, please send us their information. Shoot us an email. You can send it to our speaker liaison, Kelli, Kelli, at brainladyspeaker.com. We would love to interview more people here on the Brain Lady Speaks. So it's not just always my opinion out there. I would love to get the opinion of some other experts and some other people in the fields of all this neuroscience and neuropsychology, anything to help us improve our relationships, our life, and just overall well-being. All right, so that's it for now. Be sure to shoot us an email, give us a thumbs up, give us a quick review, and do me a really big quick favor. So long as it's within your boundaries, I want you to roll your shoulders back, take a nice deep breath in, breathe out, and go out there and simply enjoy every moment. Until next time.